In Washington, the talk of the week was a glittering dinner at the White House. The grand ballroom, with its chandeliers and polished silverware, played host to some of the most influential figures in the technology world. At the long banquet tables sat executives from Apple, Meta, Microsoft, and OpenAI. The event carried both political weight and symbolic power. It was a showcase of alignment between America's political leadership and its tech titans. But amid the swirl of names and faces, one absence dominated the headlines: Elon Musk. Almost immediately, speculation filled the air. Was Musk not invited? Asked some. Did Trump deliberately snub him? Wondered others. Social media lit up with theories, memes, and debates. For days, the mystery of Musk's empty chair overshadowed the dinner itself. Yet behind the curtain, the story was more layered than the headlines suggested. Sources close to Musk revealed that the billionaire entrepreneur had indeed been aware of the gathering, but when faced with the choice of attending, he hesitated, not out of fear of exclusion, but from a deeper calculation. For Musk, the value of an evening wasn't measured in photographs or headlines. His life had been defined by rockets, electric cars, and artificial intelligence. Each hour of his time was weighed against the demands of projects that could shift the trajectory of humanity itself. Against that backdrop, the glitz of a White House dinner seemed, at best, ceremonial. Those who knew him best described his thinking this way: dinners can create the illusion of progress, but real progress happens in the hard, quiet work of engineers and builders. Musk didn't see himself as a prop in a political performance. He saw himself as a builder, and builders, he believed, belonged in the workshop, not under chandeliers. And so, while others raised their glasses in the East Room, Elon Musk chose not to be there. The decision would spark endless commentary, but to Musk, it was simple. This was not a rejection of politics, nor a protest against Trump. It was a question of principle, of where his attention belonged, and of the kind of world he wanted to help build. As the chatter around his absence grew louder, analysts and commentators began dissecting Musk's decision. Some insisted he had been sidelined by Trump's team after months of friction between the two men. Others argued that Musk himself had pulled away, unwilling to play the role of a polished guest at a political showpiece. The truth, however, seemed to lie somewhere deeper, inside Musk's own philosophy of time, honesty, and progress. Those close to him recalled how Musk often described gatherings of this kind as optics-driven. He had little patience for environments where substance took a back seat to spectacle. To him, such events were like rockets launched without fuel, spectacular for a moment, but destined to fall back to earth. Musk believed that spending an evening under chandeliers exchanging rehearsed lines with politicians added nothing tangible to the mission of solving humanity's biggest problems. In private, he voiced another concern. At dinners like these, honesty often comes at a cost. Guests are expected to smile, to nod, to keep conversations light. But Musk was not wired that way. He was known for bluntness, for calling inefficiencies what they were, and for challenging assumptions even in the most delicate rooms. He knew that if he had attended, he might have disrupted the carefully choreographed evening with inconvenient truths, that governments move too slowly, that regulations often choke innovation, that climate deadlines mean nothing without radical change. And he doubted that anyone truly wanted to hear those words over dessert. In this sense, his absence was not just a personal choice. It was a message. By refusing to attend, Musk quietly signaled his refusal to be a prop in a performance. He valued authenticity over access, substance over ceremony. To him, declining the invitation was more powerful than delivering any speech in that room could have been. Reporters who tried to chase the story found themselves divided. Some painted Musk as arrogant, too proud to sit with peers. Others framed him as principled, unwilling to compromise his voice for political optics. But those who had worked alongside him knew this much. Musk guarded his time fiercely, and he believed every hour should be spent where it mattered most. To him, the White House dinner had been a distraction, and distractions in his world were luxuries humanity could not afford. In the days following the dinner, Musk's absence continued to dominate the media cycle. Headlines speculated endlessly, pundits debated motives, and late-night comedians turned it into a running joke. But behind the noise, Musk had already moved on. While cameras lingered on Washington, he was walking through the floor of a Tesla factory, speaking with engineers and inspecting prototypes. To him, that was where the real story of progress unfolded. For Musk, The symbolism of a dinner paled in comparison to the reality of factories and labs. He often spoke about how true innovation rarely came from those seated at polished tables. It came instead from the anonymous builders, the engineers debugging circuits at 2 a.m., the machinists fine-tuning parts until they fit perfectly, the young coders testing algorithms again and again until they worked. In his mind, these were the real architects of the future, even if they never made the headlines. He once described such events as exclusive circles pretending to represent the future. The White House dinner, in his view, was precisely that, a curated room of elites claiming to embody progress, while millions of unseen innovators remained outside its doors. Musk questioned what it meant to validate such a system by showing up. Why lend his presence to a structure that celebrated hierarchy more than genuine creation? Those who asked him later about the choice heard a variation of the same explanation. Honesty had no place in those rooms. If he attended, he would have spoken about the inefficiencies of bureaucracy, about the dangers of complacency and AI regulation, about the urgency of climate change. But he knew the words would land with polite nods and no follow-through. Better, he thought, to keep those truths alive in the arenas where change was still possible. Inside workshops, design reviews, launchpads. Critics saw arrogance, supporters saw integrity. But whichever lens one used, Musk's no-show had the same effect. It reminded people that he did not operate by conventional rules. Saying no was, for him, an act of power, and in this case, his silence at the dinner table spoke louder than any toast could have. As speculation intensified, another layer of the story began to surface: the complicated personal dynamics between Musk and Trump. Their relationship had always been a pendulum. Moments of praise followed by sharp disagreements. At times Trump lauded Musk's vision and daring. At other times he dismissed him as unpredictable, even troublesome. For Musk, the fluctuations were irrelevant. What mattered was staying true to his mission. Those close to him suggested that this was another reason for his absence. Had he gone to the dinner, his presence would inevitably have been politicized. To some, it would have looked like an endorsement. To others, a cynical bid for influence. Either way, his choice to attend would have been spun into a narrative he could not control. Musk had lived long enough under the relentless gaze of the media to know the danger of such traps. He would not give anyone the chance to use his attendance as a symbol for something he did not stand for. And there was also the matter of validation. Musk never craved legitimacy from banquets or ceremonies. He measured his worth not in handshakes under chandeliers, but in rockets that landed, in vehicles that rolled off assembly lines, in breakthroughs that pushed humanity closer to survival beyond Earth. Sitting at the dinner would have meant playing a role in someone else's performance. But Musk had no interest in performances. Friends described his thinking in stark terms. True leadership wasn't about being seen at the right tables. It was about carrying burdens when no one was watching. It was about building, not posturing. That belief, forged through decades of risk and failure, left him little patience for ceremonial politics. In a way, Musk's decision was less about Trump or the White House and more about freedom, intellectual, personal, and strategic. Attending would have required silence in moments that demanded honesty, compromise in moments that demanded clarity. And for Musk, that price was too high. Freedom of thought was more valuable to him than proximity to power. Critics called it arrogance, again. Supporters called it courage. But beneath both labels lay a simpler truth. Musk was aligning himself not with the moment, but with the mission. And to him the mission always came first. In the aftermath of the White House dinner, the chatter did not die quickly. News outlets continued to speculate. Columnists penned think pieces, and social media spun theories into endless loops. But Elon Musk remained unfazed. For him, the noise was temporary. What mattered was the work. The rockets being tested, the software being refined, the factories moving closer to full automation. While Washington dined under crystal chandeliers, Musk's world was lit by the glow of welding torches and computer screens. When asked directly if he regretted not attending, Musk's answer was consistent: no. He explained that his measure of success had nothing to do with invitations. Success, for him, was counted in the number of rockets that landed without failure, the number of electric cars on the road reducing emissions, The breakthroughs in AI safety that could protect humanity from its own inventions. These, he insisted, were his milestones, not dinners, not photo ops, not applause from political elites. Observers noted how deliberate his choice of words was. Musk described time as a finite currency, more valuable than wealth. Every hour spent in ceremony, he argued, was an hour stolen from real progress. And with humanity facing existential threats, climate change, dwindling resources, and the risks of uncontrolled AI, he believed the world couldn't afford distractions. His critics saw the stance as defiance, perhaps even isolation. But to many supporters, his refusal resonated as a reminder of what had always set him apart: the willingness to step outside convention, even when it cost him in public perception. They argued that Musk's absence from the dinner was itself a statement, one that echoed louder than any speech he could have given at the podium that night. In the end, the dinner would be remembered as a glittering spectacle of power and influence. But the bigger story was the empty chair, the absence that sparked more conversation than the speeches given by those present. And in that absence, Musk had drawn a clear line. The future, he insisted, would not be written in banquets or sound bites. It would be written in code, in steel, in rockets breaking gravity. And so, while others toasted under the chandeliers, Elon Musk stayed where he believed he belonged, closer to the work, closer to the mission, and in his own way, closer to the future.